Alrighty, good morning, folks. So I hope you are doing well today, and I wanted to do this short video to give a tutorial on how to fix some of the issues we've been seeing on the network with the Polygon network dropping transactions. So if you haven't noticed over the last couple of days, when people have, on the Discord, and even if you just use the network in general, we've been getting a lot of inconsistency with transactions. We seem to be sending a transaction and sometimes it goes through and sometimes it doesn't go through, and people have been blaming the network, as part of this issue, which again is not a bad way to think about it, but it's not 100% true, because when you think of the network slow, you think of it as something core to Polygon, that something is wrong with Polygon. But there's actually a second culprit that I've experimented with and found that if you change this thing, you might actually stop getting transactions to drop through or to drop, and actually might hit the network more often. It won't solve issues with gas if you still put a transaction too low and the gas usage is very high. It may not get picked up for an hour or ever, but at the very least you can solve this problem. So to start, let me switch over my screen. There we go, I'm here. So first off, the problem has to deal with your endpoint you are using to connect to the network. So this if you go to the documentation, you will see, especially here Polygon, it says, okay, use HTTPS polygon-rpc.com. It has this very official look to it. But the truth is that that's not like an official endpoint from Polygon. Or let me put it this way. It's not like when you go to coinbase.com, like that's Coinbase, right? That you're going through here. But like cryptocurrency works differently. Blockchains work differently. It doesn't necessarily, you can use any endpoint you want here. And so long as you get access to the network, you really don't care. So what ends up happening is that this network ends up being part of the chain to get you into the Polygon. So this RCP endpoint, if you actually go to it, you can go see this website here, you can copy the endpoint, and they're telling you how fast, free, etc. it is and how many total transactions they're handling. You can see it's actually been going up pretty dramatically. There's actually been a pretty big spike of usage. And what ends up happening is that if that endpoint goes down, you don't get access to the Polygon network. So for example, like it's just a bunch of servers. These guys here are hosting a free RPC endpoint that you can set up. You're using it, but it's publicly available and it's on the Polygon website, so everyone else is using this. So let's say, for example, 3 times as many people or 5 times or 10 times as many people want to use the network right now. Well, they got a bunch of servers. This is publicly available, and it's very, very likely that the endpoint gets overloaded. What does that actually look like? Well, this is a diagram of a DDoS attack, basically, a distributed denial of service attack. What happens when your websites go down due to malicious hackers? What ends up happening is a bunch of computers try to get to the server all at the same time, and there is a bandwidth limit to how many how many transactions a single server can have, how many interactions it go through, it can go through. So you can almost think of this happen the same way, but instead of it being one person doing this, many people are trying to get the server at the same time. And if this endpoint here, the server, whatever this is, isn't equipped to handle that many people, you'll all of a sudden get dropped transactions. And so this is part of the problem. So what I found is if you switch over to another endpoint, one that's actually more private but still free, you actually get a lot better activity. And this is what I've done with my Polygon and Metamask. I've actually changed over to another set of transactions. So here I'm going to switch over to myself real quick while I go ahead and type in my password here. Go ahead and mute. Alrighty, we're back up here. Alright, so we're now inside of Polygon, and I can actually go to add networks, and you can see, usually you have, let's go to networks. Usually you have like, some network, like, so for example, for the Polygon Mumbai, this one, for example. See, actually, Metamask is already using Infura.io to set up all their things. So they're even using an intermediary. That's one of the intermediaries. But for example, if you go to Polygon, for example, you could just have this public endpoint here. But that public endpoint ends up being very hard to use. So I already switched over to Alchemy. So what I want to do now is to show you how exactly to set up that Alchemy endpoint, how to add it in and go and do this. So I'm currently right now using Alchemy, but we're just going to set this up from the get-go, and I'm going to do a completely new point. So we're going to go ahead and delete this. First thing you're going to want to do to set this up is you're going to want to go to Alchemy or Infura. They are both doing the same thing. So what these companies, let's do Infura, Polygon. Like click this. There we go. Okay. Infura is another one of these. So what these guys do is that they effectively host nodes on behalf of their clients. You can sign up for their services, and you can actually pay for their service to allow you to develop, or you can get a certain number of requests per day. They support a bunch of projects, but you don't actually have to do this. They will go and run a node for you by free, and you get to use a still gated one because you have to sign up for their service node, but it allows you to get better access to the network. And the reason this, and the way this works, this is what I was going to say before, is in order to connect to the blockchain, you have to have a node you have access to, and somebody has to run that. You can run a node on your own. If you wanted to run the Polygon blockchain on your computer, you could go and do that, and that could be a node on the network. But often it's just easiest to outsource that to someone else. These guys will actually run a full node and make sure it's up to date, and they probably have way better DevOps engineers than either you are or you have friends that are. So it's a lot easier to be able to run. And instead of sending to your own endpoint or some random endpoint you find on the internet, you send to a node that's locked behind an API key. So this is still free. So Infura is one of these organizations. Alchemy is another. I just happen to use Alchemy. I actually know a DevRel person over there, and this is just me setting up my own main account. So we have my main page. You can see the number of requests we set up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new project. So I'm going to go create this. I'm going to call this a, test Polygon Mumbai, because we want to do this into the testnet network transaction. And we can add a description if we want. We're just going to say this is in development, and I'm going to choose Polygon, and I'm going to do Polygon Mumbai. Let's go ahead and create that app. And now we have these details. Next, we're going to go click into that, view details, and we're going to see a bunch of different details up at the top here. But really what we care about is we're going to view this key. So I'm going to delete this after this video, so this key is going to be, gone by that point. But what instead you're going to want to use is this HTTPS request, because that's how we're going to connect to the RCP endpoint. We're going to go and copy that, and then we're going to move over to Metamask. I'm going to go add to network. I'm going to go Metamask. Oh, let's go. Yeah, we're going to call it Polygon Mumbai testnet. And over in the new RPC URL, I'm going to go and put that new address, and I'm going to leave the API key at the top, at the side. I believe the network is 80001. The currency symbol is Matic, and the blockchain explorer is going to be Mumbai. So it's mumbai.polygonscan. But if you're using production, you would use their production endpoint. And go and add that. So I'm going to go and save it. Yep, it's 8001. And now I am connected. So I'm now on testnet. All of my transactions are here. And now I'm going to go ahead and try to send a transaction. Let's do it to the just this random account here. So I'm going to send 0.1. I'm going to go next. And I'm on testnet, so it says very likely. Go ahead and confirm. Contracts pending. And it looks like it went through, so it was accepted. So anywho, that is all I really wanted to share today. This was not super complicated, but I know if you use an Infura endpoint or an Alchemy endpoint to get to the network inside your MetaMask, it's going to be cheap, it's going to be easy, it's going to be locked behind an API key, so not everyone has access to it, and you're way, way, way less likely to drop transactions. Anywho, thanks for watching.